All right. Hey there, everyone. I'm Sean. I am the co-founder of the Blockchain in Paradise group here that is hosting this meetup. And this is Zach Manafort here. We're going to be chatting about crypto Web3 related things today. Zach, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about your journey into crypto Web3 and what made you believe that crypto was something that you wanted to learn more about and spend more time and energy in?
Yeah, so for me, my journey started in, I think 2016, late 2016. I was doing a lot of work for the military on counter-threat finance and following terrorist money. And that naturally led me to Bitcoin as they were moving payments through that way. And yes, it was part of the job, but I fell in love with the tech and kind of was like, okay, this is an industry that could really disrupt kind of how traditional finance works in the future. And it really had, to me, it had a real potential to change the way we're all operating. I was wrapping up my time in the military and was trying to find a way to work in the Web3 industry full time, doing a lot of personal brand building on Twitter, now known as X. But it was making some traction. I ended up catching on with a community in the Avalanche blockchain, and I was eventually approached to work on the gaming team at Ava Labs after my time in the military. Eventually everything got laid off. I bounced around for a little while, and then in 2024, I joined a Web3 marketing agency startup, and that really was a big eye-opener for me on the agency side, having to work with like 25 different Web3 projects across the last 2 years. Everything from gaming, DeFi protocols, GPU tokens, pretty much everything, perps exchange platforms. It just gave me a different perspective onto all the different types of technology and applications within the Web3 space that could be useful. Yeah, I think the biggest thing, honestly, is stablecoins and the ease of sending payments anywhere within seconds. I mean, I think you take away the settlement layer that everyone's been plagued with for decades now. When you want to send an ACH or any type of transfer from, let's say, here to the Philippines, you got to pay $30 to $40, and then you have to wait 3 to 7 days for it to settle. But the person you're sending to needs that money now, so that doesn't really solve the problem unless you know ahead of time when they're going to need money, and that generally isn't the case. With stablecoins, you know someone in the Philippines needs money, and they're trying to buy something right now at 7-Eleven. You send them a USDC payment, takes a second, costs less than a penny. So really, I mean, that alone is a game changer for what the biggest benefit in Web3 is in my mind. Outside of that, there are the applications are kind of endless when it comes to tokenization of any real-world assets. I think the biggest one, and I think we're going to talk about it a little bit, would be like real estate, car titles, all these things that have historically been expensive to do and process through escrow services or insurance, like home title insurance. Spend $3,000 to $5,000 just for an insurance agency to go through decades of paper records to hopefully not find any issues. And it processes almost instantly instead of 3 to 7 days, which is part of that like long 45-day closing window that currently exists. Not to mention the other, on a $500,000 home, you're paying $25,000 to $50,000 in closing fees. That is part of that, but if you on-chain that, take out the escrow service and all this other stuff, it's maybe $2,500 to $5,000. So substantial savings, which obviously will get pushed back from real estate agencies across the globe, because that's going to obviously hurt a lot of businesses.
Yeah, so a lot of what you're saying comes down to the fact that one of the most important characteristics of cryptocurrencies and crypto assets is that they have no border, right? And so as opposed to, your Bank of Hawaii account that is here in Hawaii and you can go to your ATM, your Bitcoin or your Ethereum or your stablecoins live in your wallet that live on the internet. And so you can send money to people anywhere in the world within 1 second, which is completely unlike the traditional banking system that you have today. When you mention stablecoins, as we know, a stablecoin is a cryptocurrency that is pegged to $1. So it is a cryptocurrency, but it just has the price of 1 equals $1. And to a newcomer to cryptocurrency who only knows it as something that you invest in, you might say, why would you want just $1 on a blockchain? And the answer is, like Zach was talking about, that a lot of people around the world don't have access to dollars, and they want dollars. And for most people around the world, US dollars are the currency that they want the most. And so there has been a lot of demand for these stablecoins, like you alluded to. In 2025, stablecoins were transacted globally than there were Visa payments for Visa credit cards and debit cards and things like that. One of the big characteristics there is this idea that you're taking away borders and friction and middlemen from the way that the payments are routing so that you can be more direct with the money in the way that you want to spend it. And so you just talked about a bunch of ways that people are using various cryptocurrencies and assets, but what would you say to someone that still only thinks of crypto or Web3 as gambling, or something to speculate on or to make money on quickly?
But underneath that layer, there is the infrastructure that's being built to actually have revenue generating products and businesses that are solving real world problems, like real estate, like tokenized car titles, the stable coins in general, just being able to freely cross through borders without having to pay and wait and process like the 3.5% Visa fee. Like the consumer is saving an extraordinary amount of money over their lifetime now, not having to pay those fees and wait that amount of time for both convenience and expenses.
Yeah, and something you touched on that's super interesting there is that if you think about Apple, and I just tell you to think about Apple, what you think about is iPhones and MacBooks, and you think about the products that Apple is selling. The reality is that most cryptocurrencies, crypto protocols, crypto companies are building products, but you have to start with thinking of what the product is. But there is this kind of like separation between the product that these things are putting out there, which is often a good, trying to make the world a better place, and what the price of the asset is doing. But one more point to what Zach is saying, though, is that because cryptocurrencies, anyone can launch one if they have the technical ability to do it. There are a lot of illegitimate, cryptocurrencies out there, and that is where it is hard for someone who is just trying to learn more about the space to really deduce, what is real and what is not real.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point, and I was thinking about it yesterday. And when we talk about like the space is evolving, and we're still kind of in like the first part of it, maybe the later part of the first stage of this game. But going back to like the .com era, when you saw all those places IPOing, like Pets.com and Amazon as two examples. And Pets.com paid like $300 million for a Super Bowl ad back in 2000, and now they're nothing. But Amazon, which was like a sub $25 stock and was just like selling books at the time, they started there, and then they evolved and kept improving on the product. And people that understood that then use Amazon more and more and more. They may not have ever bought the stock, but it became the powerhouse that it is today because it made life easier across the board. And those types of crypto products, some will explode, like FTX being the Pets.com. If they make your life easier, then continue to use them.
And so right now in Congress, Zach, there is a big bill, the Clarity Act, that has already passed the House and is going to be voted on by the Senate shortly. What is this bill trying to do?
There's a lot of gray area in there leading up to the Clarity Act, and that is what the Clarity Act is supposed to define, like the left and right limits, who can do it, what the rules and regulations are. And obviously, because it's a large threat to the way the banking industry operates currently, it would take a lot of money out of their bottom line, although it would benefit the user and the consumer a lot more. But on the pro side, it does establish that framework where institutions can now feel comfortable getting involved in crypto, understanding what the legalities are, how they have to report things, what they are allowed and aren't allowed to do to keep them out of the line of fire when the administrations change or things happen and they're not operating within the legal layer of the law. So if it does pass the Senate and is eventually signed into law, it should allow the U.S. to kind of reclaim a lot of the crypto dominance that it once had. Before, a lot of people were like, we don't really have any laws or regulations, and people kind of backed off a little bit, and the rest of the world kind of adopted it a little bit faster, like Korea. But it does also, on the bare, downside of it, establishes a lot of KYC with know your customer and people having to provide an identification for everything that they do on chain in the U.S. And there are some that live in we started this because we didn't want to rely on the banking system.
Yeah, so right now, right now today, there are not that many rules in the United States that are specifically about cryptocurrencies and the companies that handle them, create them, use them, whatever. And so what happened in the prior years is that the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, would try and issue enforcements against crypto companies and against cryptocurrency protocols to say that they were not following the rules that treated them like stocks. And importantly, as crypto is continuing to be adopted, especially stablecoins, and institutions want to start to handle these products more, these institutions, banks, Wall Street, et cetera, don't feel as though they're able to interact with the crypto industry because there are no rules in place and they don't know what to expect. And so that is where this clarity bill that is in Congress right now is so important. It establishes a clear framework for how to treat cryptocurrencies legally, and what regulations companies that handle them or create them have to follow, so that everyone in the United States, from retail people like you and us, regular individuals who are interacting with companies, to companies that are creating cryptocurrencies and crypto products, to the banks and the institutions like Wall Street that want to get involved with, say, stablecoins, can all feel comfortable knowing that there are these rules that are being followed. So, we're talking about crypto here, but, how does the emergence of AI, the AI tooling that is being used more as people are interacting with AI tools more, how does AI affect how crypto is developing, and how do the two go together?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it all ties back to stablecoins and payment rails, honestly. AI agents they don't have a social security number, they can't open a bank account, but they can handle stablecoins pretty seamlessly, and for fractions of a dollar, fractions of a cent really, conduct transactions. You give it, a wallet, you feed it with USDC, and then it can make those transactions for you without having to, have an identity and do all these other things.
Yeah, because, cryptocurrencies are these assets that live on the internet, and that means that you can program them to behave in certain ways. But with crypto and with AI helping it as a brain, because like Zach said, an AI, your AI assistant is not going to be able to open a bank account to hold money, but they can interact with these crypto wallets that are natively on the internet. So, what if your money could think for itself? And so this intersection of crypto and AI really lets money itself become smarter in a way that is just not possible on the current rails today.
Yeah, you make a good point, because it's even like right now you can set alerts for when a price drops somewhere, and then you're like, oh, it dropped, and it gets sent to your inbox, and you still have to go in and find it and click it and buy it. But you could tell your agent, like, hey, I'm looking for a surfboard under $150 that's free shipping and will deliver to me, and it will just sit in your wallet, and the AI will just keep looking, and eventually it'll find one that meets your criteria. It'll just buy it, have it shipped to you. You'll never have to interact with it, and it'll just send you an email saying, here's the shipping number and the tracking number. It'll show up at your door on X day. Saves you all the time in the world from having to look every day on new websites or try to search and find your best deal.
So a lot of people are, getting interested in AI and not necessarily thinking about it with applications related to crypto as well.
Yeah.
But there are some really unique things that crypto lets AI do. So what skills, Zach, would you say matter most if someone here was interested in either learning more about the industry or like working in it themselves? Yeah, I think you're right in that you have to be able to go out and start doing things and to learn and to educate yourself, and it's going to be hard because crypto is confusing. And it used to be simpler in that there was, say, only Bitcoin that you had to learn about, or only Bitcoin and Ethereum, but now there is so much about crypto that it's very easy to get lost in the sauce and not know what to look at, what to learn, or how to make sense of any of it, because one, crypto will get a lot easier to use, but then when crypto is a lot easier to use, you won't be special anymore because everyone will know how to use it already. The time when it is like particularly valuable to know about, to learn how to use something, is when it's still hard to use, because then you're unique in knowing how to use it.
So start small, don't try to capture it all.
So if you are a local builder or business owner here in Hawaii, Zach, and you wanted, or you were curious about crypto and utilizing it for your business, what would you either give them for advice or caution them about, or what are some ways that you might see something being useful to a local business here in Hawaii, or anything along that thread?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say would accept stablecoin payments. There is pretty much zero risk on taking the stablecoin payments at this point. I think the second thing would be to, if you're really truly interested as a business owner in Web3 and crypto, is to get involved with the legislation and the government here.
And something like a business accepting stablecoin payments is not something that disrupts your whole business from day one. And if you're trying to take these like big steps to do some sort of big blockchain product, the thing to ultimately remember is that if it's not going to save your customer money in the end, it is likely not going to be a successful venture. You might see something along the way where you're like, oh, a blockchain could fix this. So last question for you, Zach, here that I have is, in a few years, what would Web3 crypto success look like in Hawaii?
I think, obviously, a regulatory framework for the state of Hawaii would be a huge win. I think that's still probably years away if it gets there. So I think 3 years is probably about the right timeline to see something actually make it all the way through and get passed. So if something did, I think that would be a huge win. On the business end, I think the more businesses that will accept stablecoins is a win. If we see that volume going up over the next 3 years, that's also a win, because it's saving, as you said, customers time, and also potentially saving them money for sure, potentially time as well. And I think the more businesses that also tie in AI with crypto that are on island, the better, because that allow them to interact not only on the island, but it also allow them to interact globally. Like, for instance, as we see, this is kind of outside of Web3, but it does tie back into it.
We are here in the middle of the ocean. We are constrained by what can get here. Things that do get here are more expensive than they are on the mainland. And we cannot send things to the mainland without it being more expensive as well. We are constrained by borders here. And so that's another thing where cryptocurrency being borderless gives people and businesses here an opportunity to build things for a market that is not just constrained to Hawaii. And if you can do all of that, it creates a feedback loop that's better for businesses, it's better for customers, it can lead to higher wages, better products, things like that. Hawaii, when it comes to this kind of space, does not have to lag behind other parts of the US. It can be a leader here because by being so geographically constrained, is like the rocket fuel to go out into this, internet, world that's out there, and we need to make things better